This is one of my trails through the woods. Runs along a beaver pond over to the left. Unfortunately, if you look closely, you see that the beavers have flooded part of the trail. It turns out that this poplar had fallen of its own accord, but when its root plate got pulled up, that pulled up the root plate for this poplar, and it fell across into an adjoining tree. The beavers wanted the poplar, and they invested a good bit of time into gnawing at it. High side, they were standing on the ground. Low side, they were standing in the water. But they eventually decided that even if they cut it, it wasn't going to come out of the tree it was lodged in. Now that's probably not the reason that they attacked the tree that it's lodged in. The northern red oak is not a species they eat, and the wood is too hard for them to want to fell the tree. What they do is something I consider a bit amazing, and I have seen them do this many times in mixed forests. The species they like to eat all prefer to grow in full sun. These big hardwoods make it too shady for the beavers' preferred trees, so they are killing them purely so sun can get down to the species they like. So along that same theme of killing trees they weren't interested in, they came and they girdled this ash tree. They left the red maple here intact. So ash is a nice firewood, so I'm going to want to take that tree. The red maple, I'll fell it for them so it goes out in the pond. The oak, I definitely want the firewood. And I'm going to try and get it so that that poplar ends up in the water for them. They may have left just enough of a strip of cambium so that the top of the tree is not dead. It does look like it has a few sprouts on it. So the problem I've got is how to get that oak tree, and with the way it's going to fall, I'm going to have to take this red maple, and then I'm going to have to take the ash and get them to fall towards the camera, because I want the ash on land so I don't have to wade out in the water or pull it out of the water to get it. Unfortunately, when we look closely at the ash, we see that it has a distinct back lean, not going the direction we want it to. We want it to come over to our left. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. We'll have to use wedges on that. The red maple, we want it to fall directly away from the camera so that it's in the water so that beavers can get it. The idea will be that I'll get a few butt logs off of it. The beavers will trim off the branches, and then I can pull the rest of it out of the water and use that too. But as we look up, we see that there's a branch on the pine tree that's directly in the direction of fall for the red maple. So that may end up being a problem for us. We may have to do a couple of cuts on the red maple if it gets stopped by that branch. Once we do the cuts, whatever's catching on the red maple will fall and probably snap off that branch, after which the red maple will fall in the pond. So that's what we're going to tackle first. I have my typical inclined notch and back cut started. So now we'll see if we can use our new, I don't know what you call this thing, sort of an axe, sort of a hammer. Success. And looks like I scared away several geese and a great blue heron. After looking at this job a little bit more closely, it got more complicated. The leaning, unfortunately, is dead poplar on the right. Goes up through the oak tree and it comes over, and its branches are actually a little bit intertwined with the ash tree that I want to take down next. The beavers have effectively killed it. It's got a tiny little cambium bridge, so it actually is coming into leaf, but it's not going to survive with all of that gnawing at the base. So what I'm going to try and do is take the poplar and I will cut the base and get it to fall away from us and a little bit to the left. What that will do, that butt should be heavy enough that it will lever, pivot about that point, and that will then remove the branches from interfering with the falling of the ash. And by making it fall away from us, that will give some force on the oak tree to make it fall towards us and to our right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut that. And it's not going to fall because it's supported by the tree, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to get that down because all the weight will try to pinch my saw. That's going to be a problem. And I don't want it to fall just straight down into the water. I want it to fall away from us. So what I'll do is go ahead and take a fairly stretchy rope and pull it away from us and to the left. Put a lot of tension on that rope so that when it does come off of the stump, it'll hopefully go 4 or 5 feet left and away from us. So we'll see how that goes. So we've got our beaver gnawed stump, and what we've done is we've got a yellow rope that's under a fair bit of tension, and it's being pulled back by the orange rope to increase the tension. Hopefully when I cut through this, I'll cut it on an angle so that it will slide off of my saw, and hopefully it'll move a few feet over away from the camera. So our ash tree is free now. That's good. But this poplar has fallen over on this side. Still got a lot of butt up there. And we don't want it on this side impeding the fall of the oak. So what I'm going to do is cut it about as high as I can reach, and hopefully with the rope pulling it and the weight of the butt, it'll swing back up into a position with the butt down. So we'll give that a try. Since it fell into the lower crotch, now it is just barely blocking our ash tree from being able to come towards the camera. So what I'm going to have to do is go get my cable winch and chains and pull that base back so that we can free the ash. I've anchored low around this pine tree because I suspect that as I start to pull, that butt is going to start to raise, and I don't want to have it raise without tension going into it. So I fasten low on it as well, and we'll start cranking and see if we can get that pulled back, get it so that it's not interfering with our ash tree. There's some good movement. Finally ready to take down the ash. But that's going to be a job for tomorrow. Looking at the ash tree, this one strip of bark is all that's left supporting the life of the tree. That nibbled off bark goes all the way around on either side. Yet with just that one strip of bark sustaining the life of the tree, if we follow up it, we see that up at the top it's still managed to go into leaf. So there's still green in that ash tree. The oak, by comparison, it's dead, as is the poplar. So we'll take the oak and the ash for firewood. One of the decisions we have to make is, where are we going to fell this tree? And we've got a nice beech over there. Got a fairly good maple there. And over on this side we've got the pine tree. So there's really no good place for it to go without hitting something. I think that slot there might be the best place to aim it. But then I thought about it and said, wait a minute, the crown of the oak tree is so big that it's going to come down and just about everything's going to be hit. So I'm not going to worry that much about exactly where the ash tree falls. What I am going to do is, because of the pronounced lean that it's got, not only perpendicular to the direction I want it to fall, but away from it, I'm going to do some special cuts. I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment here. I made 2 plunge cuts through the tree with the bar vertical, and then, rather than cutting a narrow notch on the front, I cut out a whole section. So effectively, the hinge is going to be all of this. What I'm trying to do is make sure that I have a lot of bending before this breaks and snaps, because I want it to keep the tree from falling away the direction it's leaning, and I want it to fall that way. So we're going to see if this manages to allow some flexing before it breaks. I know if I had just a narrow notch coming down, would get tearing right here, but with this large amount of wood dedicated to bending, that may hold a little bit better. Then I came through from the back side and cut a plunge cut through. I've saved a little bit of holding wood there. I'll go ahead and put in wedges on the far side, and once I've got those wedges in, then I'll go ahead and finish the cut and then see if I can drive the tree over. We'll set the camera up to record what the hinge actually does. So here's what it looks like from the other side. We've got our wedge piece taken out. You can see the plunge cut, and we got 2 wedges set in. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the trigger and then drive those wedges in and see if we can get the tree to fall against its leans. It's now several months later from the last video I took on this tree. I've been waiting for the beaver's moat to go down. We finally got a stretch of dry weather, and that's happened. So now I'll have an easier escape path when I cut the tree. I'll lay a plank back that way, fell it that way, and be able to retreat across the moat that the beavers have dug. I see deer tracks, coyote tracks, raccoon tracks, so there's lots of wildlife in the area. It's going to be a bit hazardous with this thing up there, but it seems well locked into the tree, so it should all go that way. What was an island is probably a little bit drier, but that would have been very hazardous work because it's quite sloped and it's muddy, so at any point it would be easy to slip. And if you've got a running chainsaw and you slip and fall towards it, that's just not a good thing. So glad it's dried out a good bit. So let's get started. Okay, first we'll get rid of this little red maple. When you can do it, I'm all for audience participation. So we're going to have a little exercise now. I want to take as much of this tree as I can as firewood. I don't want to make a high cut and then try to take this piece through all the mud and everything. So what I'll do is I'll cut it low so that I can use my tractor to drag it out through the mud and then cut it up on the drier land. But I'm going to make a bad cut. What I'm going to do is come in low, cut my wedge at about a 45-degree angle. That way, when the tree starts to go, it's going to catch at 45 degrees. When I make my back cut, the back cut is going to come in at about the same level as the bottom of my cut in front. So there won't be any step there for the hinge to kick against. It will be free to kick back. The question is, will it kick back? The top of this tree is going to hit either the red maple over there or the beech tree. In either case, at 45 degrees, it's probably going to make contact, and at that point it will lift above any back step there is, and the tree will start to be pushed back by the 2 trees it hits. The question will be, will this tree be heavy enough so that it will break off the branches and simply fall through and around those trees? Or will the resistance of those trees actually kick the tree back along the stump? I hopefully will be safely out of the way that way, but I'm looking for your guesses as to what will happen once a tree starts to fall. This tree has been dead for at least a year and a half, so even its branches may be a little bit brittle at that point, so you got to take that into account too. So make your guess, and we'll go ahead and start our cut. Okay, got my escape route over there to the right, and over here we've got our wedge cut. So what did you pick? Is it going to kick back, or is it going to go straight to the ground? It took the branches off.